On a perfectly calm June night in 1960, every single person in a small Texas town woke up at exactly the same moment. Not from a nightmare, not from a siren, but from something that should never have been physically possible. The air outside their windows had turned into something resembling the inside of an industrial furnace, and nobody had any explanation for why. No earthquake had struck, no wildfire was burning anywhere nearby, and the sky above them held nothing but an ordinary passing thunderstorm. So what in the name of atmospheric science had just turned a quiet Texas evening into the hottest, most terrifying 4 hours these people had ever lived through? Because here is what makes this story genuinely unsettling. Welcome back to Dark Ledger. The date is June 15th, 1960. The place, Copperell, Texas, a quiet lakeside community pressed against the banks of Lake Whitney, a reservoir carved into the soft limestone country of central Texas. By early evening, the thermometer rested at a comfortable 70 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of warm, unhurried summer evening that makes you feel like the world is exactly as it should be, like nothing could possibly go wrong. Parents in this small town of a few hundred souls had tucked their children into bed without a second thought. A line of thunderstorms was forecast to roll through overnight. But out here in the southern plains, one of the most storm-active corridors on Earth, a region that averages over 50 severe weather days every single year, a nighttime thunderstorm was nothing. It was practically a lullaby. So Copperell closed its eyes, pulled up its sheets, and drifted quietly into the Texas night. They would not sleep again for 4 hours, and some of them would never quite feel safe in the dark again. Somewhere around midnight, every single person in Copperell woke up at once, not gradually, not one by one, all at once, as if the town itself had flinched. The windows of their homes had become furnaces. The air pressing against their front doors felt like the exhaust of an industrial kiln. One resident stepped outside with a single, straightforward intention: to check the thermometer mounted on the exterior wall of his building. He watched the mercury climb past 100 degrees and keep going. He stood there in the dark, in the middle of a thunderstorm, watching a thermometer do something a thermometer was never designed to do. According to accounts published in the Clifton Record, one of the only primary sources that documented this event at the time, a local weatherman estimated the temperature must have reached close to 140 degrees Fahrenheit for a brief period in localized areas. 140 degrees. Let that number sit for a moment. The highest officially verified air temperature ever recorded anywhere on this planet is 134 degrees Fahrenheit, logged in Furnace Creek, Death Valley, California, on July 10, 1913, a record that has stood for over 110 years. If the people of Copperell were telling the truth, this quiet, unremarkable Texas town had just experienced something that should have been, by every measure of modern atmospheric science, impossible. But the temperature wasn't even the most terrifying part. The winds arrived like something alive. Destructive, shrieking, relentless gusts tore rooftops clean off buildings, snapped power poles out of the ground as though they were splinters, and shredded a local convenience store into something that photojournalist Floyd Bright of WBAP-TV, who traveled to Copperell the following day and filmed the wreckage, described as resembling the aftermath of a direct tornado strike. Meanwhile, inside homes with no electricity and no air conditioning, families were fighting just to breathe. The air was so hot and so brutally dry that pulling it into your lungs felt, as one resident described it on camera, like sticking your head inside a burning oven. Mothers pressed wet towels over the faces of their children. Fathers carried babies down into the earth. A local farmer threw open the door of his storm cellar and gave shelter to 19 of his neighbors, people who had come stumbling through the black, roaring dark to reach him, ears popping from the sudden pressure drop, hearts hammering against their ribs. One witness, 9 years old the night it happened, speaking decades later, remembered his father making a single, wordless decision and rushing the entire family underground. While outside, a thermometer at Riddle's bait shop on the edge of town physically burst from the heat. Not malfunctioned, not cracked, burst. The glass exploding outward, the mercury gone, the instrument itself destroyed by the very temperature it had been built to measure. The people of Copperell called it Satan's storm, and they were not being poetic. The following morning, residents turned on their radios and televisions expecting, needing to hear the event acknowledged, explained, given a name by someone with authority. There was nothing. Not a single broadcast mentioned it. No report, no mention. As though Copperell had simply dreamed the whole thing. No neighboring towns reported any anomalous temperature spike. No official meteorological station had captured it. And since this happened well before the modern era of networked weather observation, before NEXRAD Doppler radar, before digital atmospheric sounding systems, before automated surface stations blanketed the landscape, there was no data trail to follow. All that remained were scorched fields, a shattered thermometer, broken buildings, and the testimonies of terrified people that the outside world, quietly, chose not to believe. The burned cotton told its own story. Farmer Pete Burns, a man whose last name, given the circumstances, carries a weight that almost feels designed, reported that his cotton stalks had darkened and become so brittle they crumbled between his fingers like ash, as though a blowtorch had been dragged methodically across every row. His hay crop, which under normal conditions requires 2 full days of summer sun to cure, had cured completely. Overnight, beneath a thunderstorm. His corn, stripped of every leaf, stood bare and blackened in the morning light, like something from a painting of the end of the world. No measurements, no instruments, no record, just burnt things and people who knew what they had felt. The explanation for what happened in Copperell, Texas on the night of June 15, 1960, arrived 51 years later, fully documented, with timestamps, in the town of Atlantic, Iowa. At 5:55 in the evening on August 23, 2011, the temperature in Atlantic stood at a warm but unremarkable 84 degrees Fahrenheit. The dew point was 75. Winds barely stirred at 5 miles per hour. It was a late summer evening like any other. But over the next 70 minutes, something extraordinary unfolded in real time, captured simultaneously by the Atlantic Automated Weather Observing System and multiple school-based weather stations across southwest Iowa. By 6:15 p.m., winds had surged to 60 miles per hour, and the temperature had jumped to 93 degrees. By 7:05 p.m., it had climbed to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, a rise of nearly 20 degrees in under an hour, while the dew point collapsed from 75 degrees all the way down to 7. Almost zero atmospheric moisture. The air had gone from a humid summer evening to the inside of a pottery kiln, in the time it takes to watch half a television program. Residents described exactly what Copperell had described. 50 years earlier and 1,000 miles away. The oven door swinging open, the blow dryer aimed directly at your face, the sudden, disorienting certainty that something had gone catastrophically wrong with the world around you. "I thought the house was on fire," one Atlantic resident said, staring into the camera. "I looked out the window because it was so sudden and so obvious." This time, meteorologists had the data, and the data, at last, had an answer.